Welcome to today's episode of In Conversation, with the first being filmed outside the UK. We're in Franklin in Tennessee and joined by Jamie Engstrom. How are you?
Wonderful, David. Thanks for being here.
I would say thanks for making the trip, but this is your home location.
Yeah,
thanks for taking the time still nonetheless.
Happy to do so. And as we talked about my time in the UK, it's wonderful to be able to host you here in the States.
Well, thank you for that. Look, before we get into anything else, CIO at Caterpillar. I imagine there might be some people watching who know exactly who Caterpillar are, but equally there will be some who don't. Should we start with just quickly explaining who the business are?
Yeah, absolutely. Caterpillar is a Fortune 100 company, and we are the world's leading manufacturer in construction and mining equipment. We also manufacture diesel and natural gas engines off-highway, diesel locomotives and industrial gas turbines. And we do a lot to make progress possible around the world, but at the same time, we're really excited to support the energy transition that so many of us are talking about as well.
Absolutely. Now, I said CIO, Chief Information Officer, there since September 2020, according to LinkedIn.
That's right.
Fact check that.
Yes. Been with the company for 23 years and moved into this role in September of 20.
Enjoying the role?
Absolutely. There's so many things that are possible with information technology right now, especially coming out of the pandemic. Digitization, automation within our factories, and improving the customer experience. There's just so many things that we can be doing in the manufacturing industry and leveraging technology to do it.
So what does the role of CIO look like at CAT?
Yes, I work very closely with my colleagues across the business to really lead an enterprise IT strategy that's all about making sure that we're delivering value to support the company's growth, to improve the online experience for our customers around the world, as I said, to look at digitization in our factories, and make sure at the same time we're managing IT risk. So I work a lot with our executive office and update our board on a regular basis as it relates to making sure that we've got the right governance in place to appropriately manage cybersecurity and our IT controls around the world.
That's interesting that you mentioned about digitization rather in your factories. I would imagine throughout the course of the last couple of years, with the crisis that we've been facing from a pandemic point of view, that's been accelerated. But from a personal capacity, what do you think's changed about the role of a tech professional during the course of COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with information technology, it's absolutely elevated the importance and visibility of the opportunities information technology has for a company's growth and the customer experience. You know, we think about our personal lives and what we all endured during the pandemic, and so much of what we did changed, and it's here to stay. You know, I think about when I had family members visiting here in Tennessee, and they needed a non-emergent medical need, and they were on video with a doctor, collaborated on what those issues were, got a prescription, and off they went. And you think about information technology and the manufacturing industry. With CAT Command, my team has collaborated very closely with the CAT Command team to use remote technology. So think about being in a construction site where sometimes there's hazardous materials or even unsafe conditions. And to have an operator now leverage remote technology halfway across the world where the operator is to utilize that machine, not only does it allow for maximizing operator efficiency because you've got less time necessarily gearing up and getting on the machine, but just better productivity improvement. And that's all happening because of what we're doing around that automation and remote capability.
I think it's interesting that you mention productivity. I'm sure that we will come back and discuss productivity versus collaboration at some point. But just from a personal perspective, you stepped up into that role as CIO in the midst of the pandemic.
That's right.
How did you find that transition, given that I suppose you weren't able to be as, in person with your teams, kind of tactile and kind of making those changes that I imagine as a leader you would have wished to have made kind of in person?
Yeah, exactly. And, first, I think moving into any role for the first time, especially during the pandemic, in some ways it's terrifying, and in other ways it was really exciting because I think with all of us being behind a video screen, the thing that we also maybe didn't realize is the subtlety and the approachability and just the humility that came along with working behind the video screens, because you were really, many of us, were in our home settings. So, I think about the opportunities it provided me to get to know my team members a little better, whether it was, my colleague's daughter walking in because she needed help with her homework assignment. And, you're able to meet their daughter, the dogs barking in the background. And I think it just leveled the playing field in terms of more of that approachability and connection that you can have with your teams, because we were really all enduring this whole pandemic together and not really knowing what was going to happen the next day, but really balancing the stressors that came along with it. So I think that was helpful in that transition.
What do you think the organisation is doing to build a diverse workforce? And I suppose maybe reflect on some of what you just said there, because we were in a position where we were inviting people, colleagues, into our homes, and that may have presented some opportunity for greater inclusion, but at the same time some statistics say otherwise. I suppose it'd be interesting to know how you've taken some of the lessons of the last couple of years into what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think the pandemic definitely helped promote our need for flexibility in the work environment. And as you think about the way we work, I often say now, work is what you do and not where you are. And I think the pandemic definitely demonstrated our ability to be able to do that. For Caterpillar, we continue to demonstrate our commitment to diversity. We've got a number of things that we're doing. We have 14 different employee resource groups. Supporting gender diversity as well as ethnic diversity, and really trying to create more awareness around the diversity of thought and the difference in perspectives that can bring. We produced our first diversity and inclusion report last year, and I think the cool thing about that is as you look at our global workforce, 35% of our workforce is under the age of 35. And then 54% of that population is genderly diverse or ethnic diverse candidates and employees. So we continuously strive to do more and be better. But I also think about our internal inclusion index that we measure every year, and 82% of our employees responded favorably to that. And it's because we're being overt and intentional about things that I just mentioned, as well as creating awareness. We've got programs, one good example is Men as Allies. And it's all about what we're doing to be more intentional about some of the unconscious biases that we all have in our day-to-day think, and creating awareness around those so that we can all be better in fostering an environment that's inclusive. And I think that's reflective in some of the things that we've seen.
You mentioned there that work is what you do, not where you are. Obviously there is some pressure. I don't know whether that's the right word. Certainly in the UK there is some pressure from government for people to be back in offices. Mm-hmm. And I think there's an interesting dynamic at the minute going on between government perhaps and industry. But how are you handling that return to the office? Because obviously there are some parts of the workforce that want to be back in the office and some who have enjoyed being at home more.
Yeah, exactly. And with Caterpillar, we're a very diverse and global workforce, as we've already talked about. Mm-hmm. And we've had employees in every day during the pandemic, supporting our manufacturing facilities and our parts distribution centers around the world. But I would also say one size doesn't fit all. And what we're doing is more of a work for your day model. And especially as the IT profession, I think we all know that we have a lot of outcomes that can be delivered by being remote and being more productive in those times at the same time. That said, there is a degree of productivity and collaboration that comes being face-to-face. I was just in Illinois last week, and many of my team members were able to be in person for an all-employee meeting. And just to see the smiles and the hugs and everybody connecting for the first time in 2 years, there's a certain enthusiasm that comes with that and what you do. So it's a balance. And that's what we're supporting, and how we work is balancing the needs of the business while balancing the needs of your personal circumstances, and recognizing that both exist, meaning you can be remote, and there are times where the business setting and being in an office environment for that collaboration is important as well.
Has that led to an evolution of the business processes or benefits to your employees? Have you kind of looked at actually what is our employee-employer relationship? How is that defined?
Yeah, I do think it has. And I think, one thing I also always say is we reserve the right to be smarter tomorrow. And I think we're all continuing to learn through the pandemic and returning to whatever the new normal looks like for many of us. Mm-hmm. But, as we were talking about how the pandemic has changed the way we work, I think that authenticity and, just as I said, leveling the playing field with the interactions, sometimes office environments, and especially as leaders when you engage with your teams, can be intimidating and they can be formal, and sometimes that intense and sometimes heated dialogue doesn't always exist. And I think being able to have that connection with your employees now in some of those informal ways, and now coming back and being with them face to face, sometimes in the office environment, has just made for a different and better way of working.
Now, whilst we're talking about the workforce, and I'll drag the conversation back a couple of minutes, because we were talking about diversity, you mentioned a lot about kind of building an inclusive workforce that I suppose meets the needs of everyone. What do you think the USA does to support girls in particular in education regarding the subject of STEM?
Yeah, certainly with Caterpillar, and this isn't a secret in the industry, but we are very focused on making sure we support women in STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and math. And we've got programs around introducing a girl to STEM and empowering up that really are focused on getting to young girls earlier in childhood and earlier in school to really emphasize the importance that they can play in some of these professions that are so critical to our world, the company's success. And I think being intentional about those programs and going after their hearts and minds earlier in life is helpful in one way that we're trying to address it.
Now, I'm going to show some ignorance here. Certainly in the UK, we're talking a lot about the Great Resignation at the moment. Is that a phrase that is being used over here?
Of course.
Okay. So look, what are you doing to kind of try and reduce that potential employee turnover at the moment? It's a very competitive labour market. People are talking about potentially kind of 41% of people looking at moving jobs within the next year. It's got to be a concern as a leader.
Yes, absolutely. The Great Resignation. I don't think there isn't a digital media source that you can't look at where we're not learning the latest with the Great Resignation. I think first and foremost right now is having empathy and really listening to the needs of your employees. And the first thing that comes with that is their desire and need for flexibility. They want to be able to make decisions around how they can be most productive, whether it's working remotely because of a particular work task or working in the office environment. So one of the other things that we've done that we have found really valuable is something called stay interviews. We all do exit interviews and find out why people have left and what we can do maybe to do things better. Mm-hmm. But that's really too late. And that's helpful as a data point. We've also started conducting stay interviews to understand, why do employees keep choosing us, and what are we doing right that we need to continue to do to support an inclusive environment. And then, as I said, really, we're investing in upskilling our own workforce. So certainly it's very important to attract key skill sets internally into the company, but being intentional in some of these more competitive technologies, whether it's cloud, automation, cybersecurity, but being intentional about investing in their careers to upskill their capabilities too.
So where you're talking about upskilling and investing in their careers, I suppose that helps build the idea that the team is moving forward, particularly with the kind of the future of technology. And we all know what an important role purpose plays in team identity and making sure that people stay with the company. What are you doing to try and make sure that your team are moving forward with the future of IT and that they feel bought in, I suppose, to the wider mission of the organization?
Yeah, everybody wants to be a part of a winning team. And I think, one of the things that I'm trying to do, as well as my leadership team, is really connecting the dot to how competitive information technology can be to the company's growth, and connecting the dot directly to being a catalyst of change, and not change for change's sake. How can we continue to leverage and promote information technology so that it continues to enrich our business capabilities and provide that growth that is so critical to the company's success. And it's really being upfront and helping develop, their business acumen and connecting the data, as I said, for them. How oftentimes, I've been in the profession for 2 decades, and I think about those instances where we've claimed success because we're on time, we're on budget, and we're on specification. But really, how does that translate to the business outcome our partners are able to realize? Is there better product costing visibility? Is the accounting methods and what we've done to automate the factory better and improved? That really translates, and people get excited about that. I think about wearables and what we're doing in the factories today, and to be able to talk to our teams to say, you've made this happen. We're leveraging high-resolution cameras with engineers that aren't even located in our manufacturing facilities to collaborate with our employees on the shop floor on issues and troubleshooting and assembling processes that never would have happened without us being a catalyst of technology change to be able to make that happen and connect people that otherwise wouldn't be able to connect.
Okay, so that's the role of the team with regards to the business. But as a leader, how do you make sure that you're able to translate what the business want? And I ask that because before we started rolling with the cameras, you talked about the need to be intimate with the business strategy. And I'd just be curious for you to kind of explain what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think what's really important for us that are, and me personally, that's in information technology is not just to be an information technology leader, but to be a business leader. So it's spending time with my colleagues, vice presidents of our engineering and our product technology organizations, and our manufacturing facilities around the world to really understand where their challenges are and where are they trying to solve complex issues and problems, and then offering opportunities and suggestions back to them on how we can help deliver on those things through the use of technology. And it's really being able to make that translation and offer those proactive solutions.
Now look, at the very top of this interview, you framed the role that Caterpillar play in manufacturing, referencing it there a little bit again. Manufacturer of construction and mining equipment. There is perhaps a tacit implication there to traditional technologies that may not be viewed as sustainable. How is the organization evolving to make sure that it is sustainable and that it is thinking about green credentials moving forward?
Yeah, a great question. And Caterpillar certainly has an opportunity to support both. Certainly the traditional energy resources and what we do there, and at the same time demonstrating our commitment to what we can do to support alternative fuels, whether it's hydrogen blends and hydrogen fuel cells. And we continue to demonstrate our commitment to sustainability. I think for decades we have a remanufacturing business where we reuse our material to extend the life cycle of our product for our customers. And not only does that have significantly less energy consumption and water consumption, but the material reuse is also another sustainable way that we incorporate into our manufacturing processes. So we offer a lot of the alternative blends in our product now as well, but there's always more to do and continuously more that we're supporting.
So look, we've spent some time talking about the Great Resignation, about flexibility that's needed within the workforce, about stay interviews, which I think are an interesting concept that I hadn't heard of before. What do you think are the important skills an organisation needs to look for in this market?
Clearly, we're all interested, and Caterpillar is very much trying to attract, as I talked about, upskilling as well. Cloud engineers and automation capabilities, cybersecurity engineers, those that have expertise and are knowledgeable in those digital capabilities, and at the same time, machine learning. All of that with RPA, robotics and robotic process automation. They're hot skills in the industry, and they're hard to attract, and Caterpillar is certainly needing those individuals as a part of our IT team at the same time.
So look, last question.
Yes.
As a technologist, what do you think helps stand cat apart? You're a growing business. You
Yeah.
mentioned that before we came into this room. So
Yes.
it'd be great to know why you think people should be interested in what you're doing as a business.
Well, I may be a little biased because I've been in the manufacturing industry for 23 years and I've been in information technology for 23 years. But it's just such a cool place to be right now. And I think with Caterpillar, it's not uncommon for you to see second, third, and fourth generation employees of families working for our company. And I think that says a lot about our value system and our sense of purpose, and being able to connect what you do, regardless of the discipline and field that you're in, to what we do around the world. And I believe in my heart of hearts, we do make progress possible. We provide clean water and we connect the world's infrastructure where it otherwise wouldn't be connected. And we make that happen through a global team in so many locations in our footprint around the world. And I often say there isn't a facility that I haven't gone into in my 23-year career where somebody won't buy me a cup of coffee and is willing to help and assist. And I think that says a lot about our value system and the culture that we create. And everybody wants to work for people that are a part of a bigger team and having that feeling and that sense of connection. And I think that's a reality and a large part of why you see me still there and so many of our employees having long-standing careers at the same time.
Absolutely. Look, Jamie, thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
I hope you've enjoyed today's interview. Thank you to Harvey Nash USA for hosting us. Do have a look around the Nash Squared website where you can find plenty more of this content.